A 5-year-old boy is unconscious in a gorilla den, and a 400-pound silverback is moving in.
Jambo was enormous. Levan's only a little tiny boy. There's no way you could stop him.
A tiger attacks underwater.
I think if a tiger shark latches onto you and takes that portion of thigh out of you, it's game over.
And a family dog falls through ice.
Why the hell did you show up?
But now, the owner's in hot water.
I didn't understand why he was arrested. I mean, he was trying to save his dog.
Wild. Uncensored. Raw. Heart-stopping animal encounters. Caught on tape by everyday people. From all over the world. Computer-generated graphics will show you exactly what happened. And meets the survivors.
I didn't want to end my career on a board. Then the bull ends up the winner.
All on Untamed and Uncut. Pauline Merritt is on vacation with her husband and 4 kids on the island of Jersey between Britain and France.
We went to the beach first, then he saw a sign for the zoo.
Pauline's 5-year-old Levan is excited to go visit the Jersey Zoo, which is famous for its gorillas. These highly intelligent primates are under grave threat from poachers, disease, and habitat destruction in their native Africa. So head gorilla keeper Richard Johnstone Scott was thrilled when a baby gorilla was born here.
Jambo is in fact the first male gorilla ever born in captivity.
Yambo means hello in Swahili, and he grows up to become a magnificent 400-pound silverback gorilla, and little Levan can't get enough of him.
Levan, literally, he was pulling my trouser legs and I can't see, I can't see.
The enclosure wall is about 4 feet high. Levan climbs up it to get a better view, while his mother's back is momentarily turned. But as he leans over, he stumbles and falls, 12.5 feet straight down onto solid concrete.
Right over and I just shouted, oh my God. And as I shouted, so everybody realised what had happened.
Zoo visitor and amateur cameraman Brian Le Leon hears the commotion.
I always had carried my camera around with me because I just love video photography, and I would just film absolutely everything.
Levan isn't moving.
It was a shock. It was just laying there quietly.
All I wanted was for somebody just to get him out.
The crowd yells to alert zookeepers. Richard hears the call, but is too far away to help.
There's a lot of commotion, people were shouting and they're panic-stricken, and understandably so.
All that noise has one effect. The crowd looks to its left and is horrified to see the gorillas are coming.
Levan's only a little tiny boy, so you think, what's going to happen next?
There are 7 gorillas in the enclosure, and as the only adult male, Yambo is the leader of the pack.
Jambo was enormous. He's like 350-pound gorilla, and there's no way you could stop him.
As Yambo approaches Levan, the crowd shouts at him to try to scare him away.
They know they're much stronger than you are, and yet they have huge jaws, huge teeth. They could bite right through your arm, no problem at all.
The boy's frantic dad wants to climb in and is restrained by staff, while they take Pauline to a spot further away.
And they wouldn't let me go back to see what was actually happening.
Yambo leans right over Levan, and to everyone's amazement, he gently touches him.
He bent down and touched the young lad and lifted his shirt, and then he brushes his hand on his back and then sniffs his hand, which is what gorillas do.
It was just very gentle and very... Actually, he was more calm than the crowd watching.
I think he showed a degree of sort of fellow creature concern. He knew there was something wrong, because gorillas react to children in a totally different way as they do towards adults.
The younger gorillas want to take a look, But Yambo positions himself in between them and Levan.
They obviously kept the youngsters away, who I think if he hadn't been there, they may have been, you know, tempted to sort of push and pull him around and see if they could get some sort of response from him.
I just kept asking, is he all right? And they kept saying yes, yes.
But things are about to change because Levan is waking up. And Yambo is just a few feet away.
Levan screamed, and he was just making this awful, like, scream. When I looked over the wall and saw his arm.
The screams disturb Yambo.
Yambo wasn't happy with this, and he moved back almost immediately.
Zookeepers are finally able to lure Yambo and the other gorillas away from Levan and into a building. All the gorillas but one. Hobbit, a young male who's been watching the action from the gorilla house, comes running out.
It's a very unpredictable situation. No one knew quite what was going to happen. When he came out, he was displaying, he was thumping up and down.
Two zookeepers and paramedic Brian Fox quickly surround Levan.
Something has to be done, and I couldn't expect one of the keepers to do it, because if he's not moved properly and he had a fractured spine, it's irreversible damage, so then I jumped in.
He tends to Levan, while the two zookeepers, armed with only short batons, bravely stand up to Hobbit's charges.
This gorilla's like massive. I knew he was as strong as 6 men or so. I thought the gorilla would, you know, kill us all if he had to.
He's excited. Is he going to start attacking the zookeepers?
But then when he did come in a couple of times, all I did was lay over Levan to protect him.
There's a lot of bluff involved in gorilla behaviour. And he kept veering away, and Andy was sort of waving his stick at him. I think he was just really testing the situation, to see how close he could get to have a look at the child.
The tense standoff continues until emergency workers throw a rope over the wall. Then Levan is hoisted to safety in the arms of his guardian angel.
The only thing on my mind is get out of here.
And Pauline is reunited with her son. Then he's rushed to the hospital.
I just kept telling him that Mummy was here, Mummy was here.
He's out of the enclosure, but not out of danger.
Levan was in hospital for 4 weeks. He had a very bad fractured skull and a very bad fractured arm.
But Levan survives his brush with death.
Yeah, I do feel quite lucky to be alive.
He doesn't remember much about what happened.
I must have climbed up and tried looking over as my dad was holding my other brother. And obviously somehow I must have just fallen into the pit. It was quite a gentle giant.
All these years later, he's still grateful to his rescuers.
I've got quite a bit of courage jumping there.
He still likes the zoos, believe it or not, and he still likes animals. And he was quite happy to go and see Jambo again.
Levan could have died, and you know, it's thank goodness for the ambulance man jumping in there and doing his work and rescuing him and getting me out as quick as possible.
He was very happy-go-lucky, always out with his friends playing. But after the accident, he just didn't want to go out. He didn't want to go out with his friends. He just used to stay indoors or in the garden.
Yambo became a celebrity, and visitors came from all over the world to see him.
People were coming up here asking where Yambo was. You know, he was this massive celebrity. He was very famous in the zoo world long before the Leven Merit incident took place. But after that, of course, people were coming here to see him.
When he passed away peacefully 6 years later, the zoo commissioned a life-size bronze statue.
The way he's looking, if you get down and look at him, you know, that's just incredible. I love the expression, and he's sort of looking away from you. With gorillas, you don't stare them in the eye, but Yambo used to look at you. If I used to walk around the enclosure, he would follow me around, and he would look up at me all the time. You know, you felt it's such a privilege to have an animal that trusted you so much. And, you know, I seriously miss him even today. A magnificent gorilla and one that will always be remembered.
A testament to the gentle giant who stood watch over the little boy and changed forever the way we think about gorillas.
His behaviour on that day did so much to improve, if you like, the image of the gorilla. They're gentle, they're understanding, and they're just wonderful creatures.
I suppose I felt quite special.
Mads Odgaard, a highly experienced diving tour guide from Copenhagen, is here leading a group of 10 other divers, all looking for the experience of a lifetime, getting close to the tigers.
Mads, he loved diving because it's freedom.
Mads' brother Soren is along with him on the trip.
I was nervous, definitely. You didn't really know what you were getting into.
Soren says Mads was a careful diver, not a risk taker. It was the second day of their trip when the tiger shark struck.
He was just thrilled like the rest of the group. Looking forward to going down to the tigers, telling everybody to have a great dive and enjoy.
The divers approach the dive zone in 2 different boats. They toss a chum bucket brimming with bait in the water. And it doesn't take long for ravenous dinner guests to show up. Then the divers flip backwards over the side, with virtually no protection against the sharks.
Shark cages and chainmail suits are used a lot of places, but in this particular dive site for the tigers, they're not used. And you don't use them because you can get so much closer and at a more realistic view and experience of the sharks without them. It was really a wild experience because you could just, everywhere you looked there were sharks.
There was about 5 tiger sharks in the area on that day, and possibly about 20 to 40 black-tip sharks as well.
Lloyd Williams is an undersea photographer hired by Mads to record the adventure. He remembers that before they went in, the dive master briefed everyone on safety.
In the briefing, they're basically told that we need to be like fish in the ocean as we stay together for safety in numbers. It is very, very important that you do not isolate yourself from the group.
The tigers are easy to spot thanks to their vertical stripes. And if you get too close, you'll notice a unique set of teeth.
They're very differently shaped than other sharks' teeth. They have this coxcomb shape to them.
George Burgess studies sharks for the Florida Museum of Natural History.
Any movement of those teeth over the skins of humans are going to cause a serious laceration, especially when the shark takes its head and goes like this. They will eat anything that fits into their mouth and are not adverse to attacking or eating carrion dead animals, garbage from humans. They'll try almost anything. And of course, the list of things that have been taken out of tiger sharks' stomachs historically over the years is immense, ranging from suits of armor in days past to a smoked turkey sandwich and one that I opened up, which still smelled good enough to eat, although we didn't give it a try. If you're going to go in the water with some animals that are known to attack human beings and you get them excited by putting a bunch of fish and blood in the water, you're asking for trouble.
One of the safety procedures was that we had to stand up straight in the water. Most things in the water are horizontal, so by standing up straight, the sharks would be confused on who we actually were.
Stand up straight. Don't leave the group. They're the cardinal rules. But Mads ignores one of them.
I didn't see him leave the group.
He had isolated himself from the group, and by him isolating himself from the group, he put himself out there.
A 10-foot-long, 300-pound tiger shark skirts 2 other swimmers. Mads turns just as it grabs his thigh. If it severs his femoral artery, he's dead.
I think if a tiger shark latches onto you, that's tickets for you. That's over for you. Game over. It's a tiger shark, and it's not going to let go until it's got a portion of that leg.
All the divers entered the water and spread out in a semicircle around the chum bucket. The semicircle provided mutual protection and a wide field of vision. But Mads, at the end of the semicircle, was exposed. And when he dropped below the group, he made himself a target.
I honestly expected to see a portion of Mads' legs gone.
But when Mads pushes, incredibly, it releases him.
It just swam away.
He still has his leg, but he isn't out of trouble.
And then I saw there was this blood flowing out of his thigh.
The dive master grabs him and helps him toward the surface, but he's trailing blood. And if he severed an artery, he only has minutes to live.
I thought, okay, this is no good. This is really, really no good, because of course, blood in the water and sharks, they could be attracted by the blood.
The sense of smell in sharks is particularly acute. One could smell a drop of blood in an Olympics-sized swimming pool, for instance. They use their nostrils, which have sensory cells in the nostrils that allow them to essentially taste the water. They swim zigzag patterns, and they note the differences in density or how much smell is in the water.
The other divers join Mads at one of their boats. But they are 20 minutes from shore, and getting everyone out of the water will take precious time. So that boat leaves immediately with Mads. The rest are left behind with the feeding predators.
If all the sharks would have wanted to attack us, we would of course be easy prey for them.
But the chum is still more alluring to the sharks than human blood. And thankfully they ignore the divers. But what about Mads?
The first time I realized that it was actually a deep cut I had was when I got in the boat. I could see that it wasn't only the skin that was cut. It had also cut some of the muscle inside. There's a hole there, which was the one that cut me. That was the tooth that came in. It bit through here, and one of the teeth came through here, and another one you can see here.
He winds up with 13 stitches. The tooth never even grazed his femoral artery. As for this shark, Mads says all he had to do to get it off was nudge it a little.
But just letting it know that it wasn't coming any closer to me was enough, and it let go and it swam away.
If it had been really serious about making that diver a meal, that first bite would have been a serious, double-jawed, shake-the-head kind of bite, which would have taken a large chunk of flesh out, and the tiger would have been persistent in pursuing the victim thereafter.
Matt is still passionate about diving and undeterred by his incredibly close call.
The shark could have done a lot of harm, and it was not its intention at all. And it's actually a very, very beautiful animal, and we need them in our oceans.
Buddy! Hi, honey!
Buddy was the Wilson family's best friend. From family road trips to protecting the newborn, Ted Wilson says the Black Lab mix was the perfect pet.
He's my buddy. Whenever I went for a walk down by the ponds, it was me and him.
Ted takes the dog for a walk by a lake near his home in Clifton, Colorado. It's a cold day just before Christmas, and with him are kids Casper and Tara.
Buddy was walking all over the ice, and then he went a little farther out, and I'm like, please don't fall through the ice.
As Buddy strays farther from the shore, the ice gets thinner and thinner. When he's about 50 feet out, he hits a patch of paper-thin ice, and it cracks. And then the 60-pound dog crashes through.
He hit that soft spot and just went right in.
I was crying like a baby. I was supposed to be able to get him out of trouble, and I wasn't able to do anything.
Buddy can't get out on his own, so Ted dials 911.
I have a dog that ran out onto the ice and fell through, and the ice is too thin for a human being to get there.
Sheriff's Deputy Jerry Gray hears the radio call and heads to the scene.
I walked back a quarter of a mile to where the dog had fallen through the ice, and the owner was down on the ice at the shore.
Come on, buddy, you can do it, come on.
The call is picked up by Grand Junction television station KKCO, and they send reporter cameraman Aaron Luna.
As I look out into the ice, there is a black dog with its head barely above water.
The trouble is Deputy Gray isn't equipped for a rescue, and neither are the first firefighters on scene.
Clifton Fire it's a part paid, part volunteer department. They didn't have any ice rescue equipment.
So here's the problem. Ted already told the dispatcher rescue equipment was needed.
I need somebody that can get out on the ice with ropes or something.
But according to procedure, the first responders have to see the dog for themselves. And then they call in the better-equipped Grand Junction Fire Department. And that causes a delay.
By that time, I'm angry. I'm not behaving well. And I asked them, what are you doing?
Why the hell did you show up? Why do you show up?
We were called for a dog in the ice.
And what the hell are you doing? Did you show up with him?
And against the deputy's orders, Ted keeps going back to the edge of the lake.
I told him you need to go back up on the sidewalk and stand back away from the ice. And as soon as Grand Junction Fire gets here, we'll get the dog out.
By this time, Ted's wife Vicky and boys Noah and Damon are there. Noah restrains his dad while Vicky goes off on news reporter Aaron.
Try this! Noah, let go. Get back up. I want it off! Off! You're gonna stay here. Off!
Ma'am, don't touch it.
Off!
I was very angry at everybody because I kept feeling like if this was one of my children, what would they do?
With every passing minute, the frustration grows. Then Buddy's demeanor changes, setting off a chain reaction.
I screamed to my husband, he's going under. And I kept screaming at everybody, please somebody do something.
So where the hell's your team? I don't want to shake your hand. I want you to rescue my dog.
At that point, I tried to run back down to the edge of the water to encourage him.
Ted maintains he was only going to encourage Buddy, but the deputy disagrees.
I think he was going to go out and get the dog just to show Grand Junction Fire and Clifton Fire and the Mason County Sheriff's Office that we weren't needed there.
So they take him down.
I didn't want to have my dad in jail at Christmas time.
My son Damon was running after him, crying, saying, let my dad go, he didn't do anything wrong, he's just trying to save our dog. I'm sorry, that was very emotional.
I didn't understand why he was arrested. I mean, he was trying to save his dog. He didn't do anything wrong.
I was more worried about the dog than my dad, because he was the one who was drowning at the time.
Ted's off to jail, but poor Buddy's still trapped in the freezing water. And now, there may not be anyone left to save him.
I felt really, really hopeless or helpless. There was nothing I could do, and he was so cold, and I could hear his breathing, and I don't know, just the way he looked like he was ready to give up.
I was really scared because I didn't want to lose him because he's like my best friend.
Deputy Gray says he's forced to arrest Ted because he was going out on the ice.
He definitely would have fell through. And then we would have had to save him and the dog.
Ted denies he was going onto the ice, but admits he lost patience waiting for firefighters with the right rescue equipment.
Why the hell did you show up? Why do you show up?
So far, I'd had 2 different emergency crews show up, and nobody was going in the water.
Now Ted is led away in handcuffs. Vicky worries she'll lose her husband and the dog.
I had to hold up my kids, and I'm still trying to coax my dog out of the water, and it was very traumatizing.
I thought he was just gonna go under and I'd never see him again.
Oh my God!
Then just as Ted's hauled off to jail, a sight that warms their hearts.
Oh, look who's here.
Then we saw the Grand Junction Fire Department running, which was a big blessing.
I'm like, please get him out.
Within seconds, one of the firefighters is sliding out onto the ice. Buddy perks up and barks. The firefighter struggles to push Buddy up and over the ice.
Come on, Buddy.
but he makes it out.
Come here, baby. Come here, buddy.
He's cold and exhausted, but Buddy walks away without a single injury.
I went over there, started hugging him and saying, yes, you're all right.
Today, Buddy still loves the water, despite his experience. As for Ted, he pled guilty to obstruction and disorderly conduct and completed 36 hours of community service.
Looking back on it, I'm ashamed. I had just come from church.
Why the hell did you show up? Why did you show up?
I was not proud of my behavior at all.
It was unfortunate that he was arrested, taken to jail, but the dog was out, the dog was fine.
The Clifton Fire Department has since announced it is buying ice rescue equipment.
It definitely shows you how far a pet owner is willing to go when their animal's in trouble. I mean, this guy was willing to brave cold water, ice, possibly hypothermia.
We got Buddy back, and we got Dad back that night, and things weren't that bad.
He went straight to the water again. He's a water dog. He loves the water. Can't get enough of it.
He's fine. He's a little bit more energetic nowadays.
He's really special because he made it out, and I thought he wasn't going to make it out because he was struggling out there pretty hard. He was a big hero for hanging in.
And the Wilsons learned something that day about the bond between man and dog.
If you'd asked me before it all happened, would I react that way over my dog, I would have told you no. But once he went through the ice and I thought he was going to drown, I found out he was one of my kids.
He may have had the most dangerous job in all of sports.
His nickname was Kamikaze Kid.
But he became the best of the best.
Rob was like a steamroller. He was going to be a world champion bullfighter.
Then just as he's about to retire to be with his loving family, something happens that rips out their hearts.
He said, I broke my neck. I broke my neck.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light.
If professional bull riding is the most dangerous sport in America, what about the guys who throw themselves between a rampaging bull and the cowboy after he's bucked off?
Your job is to protect the cowboy.
They're called bullfighters.
It's kind of an unsung hero job.
And Miles Hare says the greatest hero of them all was his friend and rival Rob Smets.
A bull only has to step on your head right one time and you're dead. And I know Rob Smets has prevented thousands of bulls from stepping on cowboys.
Miles and Rob started competing against each other in what's called freestyle bullfighting. Instead of protecting cowboys, freestyle is all about thrilling the crowd by dodging an angry bull for 70 seconds. Watch Rob fake out a bull with split-second timing. He'd even jump them, but he eventually returned to protecting cowboys with the Professional Bull Riders Association. Bullfighter Dennis Johnson worked alongside Rob for a decade.
We're the Secret Service, so to speak, for the bull riders. You know, we got to put our body in the line of fire to try and protect those bull riders.
Then two events took place that changed Rob's life. First, he broke his neck. Not once, but twice in bullfighting accidents.
Most people, you know, get in a car accident, you break your neck once and you're paralyzed.
But not Rob. His vertebrae fused with bone grafts and wire, and against doctors' orders, Rob came back stronger than ever.
That's like doing the Watusi on a razor blade there. That's walking on the edge of life.
During his comeback, Rob met, fell in love with, and married Carla, a school teacher and rodeo fan.
I was raised in rodeo, and so I was not unfamiliar with bullfighting and rodeo clowns. I had a brother that was a rodeo clown that had died when I was young.
Carla and daughters Dylan and Corey would be home while Rob was on the road 200 days a year, earning a living and taking his hits.
The emotions were a hard thing for me to get used to because it tore me up a lot of times to be waiting for the phone call.
On the occasions they did attend, she would often end up paralyzed with fear.
It was so gut-wrenching to sit and watch a performance and all the antics and all the things he did and all the things that were required of him in a performance that I just couldn't do it. And so to make me able to even be there, I would have to go to the restroom and sit, sometimes even with my hands over my ears.
I would sit there by myself and go get her when it was over because she couldn't watch.
He's getting old for a bullfighter. I knew we were on borrowed time.
Finally, after 30 years fighting bulls, Rob announces he's going to retire at the end of the season.
I feel like he achieved everything that he could have possibly achieved in his sport.
And that brings Rob to Reno, Nevada. After a rider's thrown off a 1,500-pound bucking bull, Rob decides to relive his freestyle days and give the crowd a thrill.
And Rob thought, you know, I'm going to jump him. I kind of held my breath.
Dennis is standing just feet away and watches as it all goes horribly wrong.
When I went to Rob knew straight away. He said, I broke my neck again. And I could hear the agony in his voice.
We've got a future, and this was so unnecessary. He's entertaining the crowd, and, you know, I pretty much lost it.
I was the first one on scene there with him and thought, that's a bad deal. Third broken neck.
Dennis and Rob have worked hundreds of bull riding events together, saving cowboys. Just ask any bull rider about Rob and you'll hear the same story.
Rob saved me a numerous of times.
Rob Smith has saved me so many times. There had to be a couple of times he saved my life.
Now medics battle to save Rob as the crowd is transfixed by the horrifying big screen replay. What they see is Rob landing right on that neck he's broken twice before. The human neck is made up of 7 vertebrae, hinged bones which protect the spinal cord. The first time Rob broke his neck, doctors fused his C4, 5, and 6 vertebrae, only for him to break his C1 the second time around. If it breaks again, and those bones can't protect his spinal cord, the damage could be catastrophic.
I can't even go there in my head that my husband's life could have been over because he was doing something for fun to get a response from the crowd.
The medics put Rob on a stretcher. Carla, meanwhile, is home and receives the phone call from Rob she's always dreaded.
He just said he took a hit.
Doctors discover Rob's C7 is broken. If the bone can't protect his spinal cord and doctors can't repair it, he'll either die or he'll never walk again. Miraculously, Rob's spinal cord is intact. They've never seen anyone survive 2 broken necks, let alone 3.
I don't get to look over my shoulder so good anymore after my broken neck.
I did regret the jump, the biggest mistake of my life.
I said, well, you know, what are you thinking? You're retiring, we've got a future, and this was so unnecessary.
She said, what were you thinking? I said, I was thinking I could make it. And she didn't see much humor in it.
It was the end of Rob's extraordinary career, but he wanted to go out on his own terms.
I didn't want to end my career on a board. Then the bull ends up the winner.
It's his swan song, the legendary Rob Smith.
So he talks organizers of the bull riding finals in Vegas into giving him one last go-round.
A lot of people will be able to say one day that they saw Rob Smith fight his last bull here.
And Rob bows out to thunderous applause.
I guarantee it's a moment I won't forget.
It was very tough having a bullfighter as a father, and I'm sure as a husband, not knowing whether or not they're going to live basically from day to day, from night to night, from performance to performance. And the highs are really high and the lows are really low. So the fact that we were able to get through it and for him to have as much success as he's had is just amazing, and we're fortunate that he made it and was able to do what he loved.
I'm sure it's got to be very tough on Carla. She's a rock.
Every day he'll say, I feel I'm ready. I want to go back. I'm going to call up some stock contractors and line up some rodeos. And I don't ever even respond these days. I just let it go and he'll get over it. But it's so much a part of who he is. It's totally who he is, and he can't just let it go. He won't ever be able to let it go.
Today, Rob keeps busy as a rodeo announcer and trainer. And now he has time to go rope some steers with Miles.
If I wouldn't have known Smits, I'd have thought he was crazy, and at the same time, he might have been. He's lucky to get out of here and retire. In bullfighting, if you get to retire on your own terms, you're lucky to begin with. If you broke your neck one time in bullfighting and get to retire, you're lucky, much less three.
Rob did become a legend in the bullfighting. He was kind of a pioneer too in some ways. You know, he started the jerseys for us, and Rob was always trying to think of something new, you know, and he was kind of the pioneer, and I think he's probably the most famous bullfighter. You know, some bullfighters mightn't like the idea that he is, but he is, you know. If you ask for the bullfighter's name, Rob Smets probably come up first. Rob, you know, he made his mark. He was around for a long while. He was flamboyant and did a great job, and he got noticed for it, which he rightfully should have.
It's been a long and dangerous ride, but the Kamikaze Kid is finally enjoying the comforts of home.
So many people always want to say we're crazy. Bull riders, bullfighters. It was an awful good life. Carla took care of business, and, you know, things are good.
A raccoon is up a tree with its head stuck in a peanut butter jar.
Raccoon was just holding on for dear life.
A man who lost a leg in an accident decides he's going to climb up and save it.
It's going to suffocate if somebody didn't remove the jar on its head.
But when the raccoon doesn't come down, they resort to desperate measures. A chainsaw. And you're not going to believe how this ends.
I can't believe what I saw out there.
Tony Carter has had a lifelong love of animals.
Chewing on my nose. I love animals. Always have. I guess I always will. Got a soft spot for him. See my Billy? See, he's got freckles.
And in rural Medway, Ohio, where he lives, he's found animals in some unlikely predicaments.
Open the hood. Possum built him a nice little nest right there on top of the engine.
But nothing prepared Tony for a sight that greets him while visiting friends.
I seen the raccoon in the tree with the peanut butter jar on his head.
And the jar is stuck tight. Raccoons often prowl at night in search of food. They have long necks and pointed heads, with the widest part around their ears. The friends figure the raccoon stuck its head into the jar, trying to lick the last of the peanut butter from the bottom. Once that wide section of head passes through the mouth of the jar, it's impossible for the raccoon to pull out.
911, Sheriff Fire Medical.
Neighbors call 911.
I got a raccoon out in my front yard in a pine tree, and he's got his head stuck in a jar. A jar?
Emergency crews are dispatched, but Tony and his friends can't bear to stand around waiting.
Tony and I come up with a plan to climb up in the tree and try and shake the raccoon out.
Tony's friend Harv Little wants to help, but he can't climb a tree.
I had knee surgery and I can't climb very well anymore.
That leaves Tony to do the climbing, but that won't be so easy either.
This is what makes it tough, tree climbing.
Tony lost his left leg in a car crash.
Cut this in half right here.
Doctors managed to reattach it, and now he wears a brace.
I've had 22 surgeries on it.
Tony was also undergoing chemo for a bout with cancer. But that's not going to stop him from helping the raccoon.
That raccoon's gonna die. It's gonna starve to death or suffocate, and it ain't gonna be long. We gotta do something now.
As Tony climbs the tree, Sheriff Sergeant Mike Young arrives on the scene. He's giving lectures warning of the danger of leaving trash unsecured.
I've seen pictures, but I've never seen that in person, no. When you put your trash in the trash can, make sure that the lid is on it, because these are the types of situations that can happen.
The fire department is also there, but there's just one problem.
Yeah, if we have a deputy request you send an engine down there with a ladder.
They don't have a ladder long enough to reach the raccoon.
The fire department, they were unable to assist because of the limitations with the equipment they had on scene.
Sergeant Young sees no better alternative than to let Tony continue.
Every time I tried to get him, he'd go up a little bit further.
The raccoon is now 50 feet up, and time is running out.
And I was getting kind of tired of climbing the tree because it was getting painful.
The tree belongs to Medway, Ohio resident Chris Hammonds, and he has an idea for getting the raccoon down.
I knew I had a chainsaw. Just said, I'll get my chainsaw, climb up in there, and I'll cut him out.
Tony comes down, and Chris goes up and starts sawing.
I was climbing the tree
Up to here.
They said he was all the way up there in the top of the tree right there.
Wasn't gonna give up till I got it off.
The raccoon couldn't see where he was going, so he was just climbing.
While Tony waits below, Chris climbs up the tree and saws away at the branch.
Oh, the raccoon was just holding on for dear life.
Finally, the branch breaks off, but it catches on another branch.
Started shaking the limb, and the coon came out all at once.
Sergeant Mike Young and Humane Society Director James Straley are standing right underneath the tree.
As the raccoon's falling, I'm certain it's falling to its death.
But this raccoon's got a guardian angel.
I could not believe what I was watching, because as the raccoon's falling through the sky, there's Tony waiting underneath to catch this raccoon.
I positioned myself here because it was coming this way, and I knew this would be my best chance I had of catching it before it hit the ground and got away.
I see a miracle happen as Tony reaches out and grabs this raccoon from out of nowhere.
The tree branch hits James on the shoulder.
It didn't knock me to the ground, but it definitely took the wind out of my sails for a couple minutes.
But the falling raccoon lands safely.
The jug hit me in the top of the head, then the raccoon hit me in the chest, and I wrapped my arms around it.
The raccoon struggles, but it will all be for nothing if they can't remove the jar.
Go, man. You ready to let go? Yeah. Pull it off.
As we pulled the jar up, there was an audible pop.
Let go.
There probably wasn't a whole lot of air left in there, considering that pop.
Let go.
When you're dealing with a wild animal and they got sharp claws, especially when you take the jar off its head, it can bite.
They wrangle the raccoon into a cage, and they all breathe a sigh of relief.
Yes, Eddie.
I was proud of Tony from going up in the tree, something I couldn't do, but I was glad that we both could rescue the raccoon.
The raccoon is released back into the wild.
Hopefully the raccoon is living a life in a forest somewhere, and he's happy and has more natural foods around him.
Both of us felt relieved when the animal was set free. How lucky was the raccoon? Raccoon was very lucky. He could have suffocated real easy.
A life saved by citizen rescuers who refuse to stand by and let a distressed animal die.
If I seen another raccoon with a jar on its head, I'd do the same thing. No question. If I can help them, I'm going to help them.